right? And then as I got older, I realized that that obviously wasn't true, right? I realized that being a nice guy could be problematic, and it was problematic, at least for me, and I know I see it in a lot of other people. Being a nice guy can be problematic, especially in relationships, okay? Not necessarily romantic relationships, that's part of it, but just relationships in general. But I didn't understand this growing up. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand the psychology of it until I got older. And in order to understand this, you need to realize how a nice guy is born. What is the origin of how do you make a nice guy? Where does it start, right? The origin of a nice guy, the origin of a nice guy starts in childhood. Okay? The psychology in your head is based on the heartbeat of your childhood. What happened to you as a child? And you need to understand these basic principles, okay? When you're a child, okay, and I can vouch for this when I worked with kids for over 10 years at elementary school. When you're a child, you're completely helpless. You're completely vulnerable, okay? You're 100% dependent on adults for guidance, right? You're trying to find your way in life. You're navigating in this new world. You're a child. You don't know what's going on. So you're dependent on adults, okay? This is why the number one fear of children is abandonment, okay? The number one fear of children is abandonment, when you leave them alone and they know that they're not equipped to be able to handle things by themselves, okay? Abandonment is something that haunts children. It's always lurking, right? What if I'm abandoned, right? They're completely dependent on adults, okay? So you also have a second principle, which is this idea that, as Carl Jung says, during the first half of your life, you're developing a healthy ego. And then the second half of your life is to slowly let go of your ego, right? But for that first half of your life, when it comes to your ego, the world revolves around you. As a child, you think the world revolves around you. And when you have these two things, a fear of abandonment, and you think that the world revolves around you, it's just me, right? You throw your tantrums. When you don't get your needs met, or when you're abandoned, you think it's because you're not important. Okay? So it's kind of like you feel that if there's any traumatic abandonment in your childhood, it's usually because you had needs that weren't met, that your needs was the cause or the root problem of your abandonment. Okay? And we all experience abandonment in some way or shape or form, right? It could be a missing parent, a missing family member. Just being dropped off in school during the first day is a form of abandonment, right? Your parents leave you, right? It's abandonment in your childhood that makes the child think, hey, your needs are not important. In fact, they were the root cause of your abandonment. So at that point, you start cultivating this need for validation. Okay, it's at the core of a nice guy psychology is this belief that you need to be validated and that you're not important. Okay, your needs are the root cause of your abandonment. This is the foundation of a nice guy archetype. Okay, it's a coping mechanism that rolls over to adulthood. Okay, you feel like you need validation as a child to avoid abandonment, right? So you put other people's needs before yours because your needs are not important. And this, unfortunately, rolls over to adulthood. Okay, and it's not a healthy thing. And I'm not saying don't be a nice guy. I'm saying you need to understand why you're being a nice guy. Okay? The world says you can't be who you are when you develop these patterns. Okay? It's patterns of powerlessness where you're seeking validation. And the danger to this is that when you're seeking validation from other people get to set the tone for your relationships because you need them. They don't need you. You need them. Okay? It sets you up for failure. Okay? Seeking people's validations by being the nice guy sets you up for failure.